Hey, what's up? Today is November 6th, 2025. I thought I'd just provide an update on how I've been feeling. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been well. This last week has been just brutal, mentally and emotionally. I've just been torturing myself with these thoughts. And I'm wondering, maybe I have some sort of like underlying condition. Maybe it's like OCD or something. I just keep repeating these thoughts in my head over and over again. I have no idea, but I've lost my appetite. I've lost weight. I haven't been eating well. It's almost like the life was sucked out of me. Between what happened at work, realizing I'm just not valued at that place whatsoever, and realizing that I was given part-time instead of full-time, even though I asked for more hours. When I scaled back my hours, the people who were taking my place, taking my shifts, they were given more hours. And that rubbed me the wrong way. And I guess I partially only have myself to blame. I didn't take this job seriously in the first year. I thought that I was only going to be sticking around for a couple months until I found something better, but things didn't pan out that way. I grew comfortable and remained stagnant. There's things I fell short on, there's mistakes I made. I'm far from the best worker at that place. But I guess I shouldn't be so hard on myself about it. At the end of the day, it's a dead-end job, it's minimum wage. And I'm trying to find something else. Nothing has turned up yet. It might take quite a while, honestly, so I'm just hunkering down, and I do want to invest in myself, but it's been incredibly difficult to get over this hurdle mentally, and I think I'm almost at the other end. But the main reason why I've been so depressed is because of that girl. It's really messed me up. But it's just weird. It's weird how my brain functions, how it operates. I never felt this way towards her in the beginning, when we first got to know each other, when we first started actually speaking to each other. She began working there well over a year ago. It wasn't until around 7 months in when we spoke to each other, and we had a shift. It was the two of us, and we were talking. One of the first things she mentioned to me was how much she loves her boyfriend, how she's going to be with him forever. They were talking on FaceTime during their shift, and he was waiting outside to pick her up. Even though I was attracted to her, I knew to not get close. I knew to keep my distance, and I treated her like anyone else, any other coworker. But we became friendlier over time. We got to know each other more. And it was during the summertime, around August. She had approached me. She asked if I had blocked her because she was trying to text me something. And I had recently changed my number at that time, so I gave her my new number. And that's when she reached out to me later that evening, and we just started texting each other from there. And I discovered that we had a lot in common. 'Cause she was incredibly beautiful. Just insanely beautiful. She's introverted, a similar personality to mine. She's really sweet, really fun and flirty when she opens up to you. We had similar interests, things in common. She was big into gaming, into art, similar taste in music, similar values, everything lined up. She was really checking all of those boxes, and it's hard. It's hard to find people like that, who meet the criteria you're looking for in another person. And those feelings grew. I developed feelings, and it's the worst thing that could have happened. And I really enjoyed talking to her. I really enjoyed texting her. But eventually it came to an end, and I was left feeling confused. I didn't really talk to her at work until she had come up to me and asked what was up. And I played it off, but then I said to her, like, you left me on read. And that's when she told me, it was because of her boyfriend. Her boyfriend didn't want her texting me any longer. And I respected it. And aside from that, everything else was fine during that shift. We were talking, she was her usual self around me, and that was it. That is until our following shifts. I remember the next shift we had, she was wrapping things up and I was starting mine, and I noticed that she was colder and distant towards me when I tried speaking to her. I remember that conversation we were having was pretty awkward. She had just celebrated her birthday, and I was asking about it. And she was turned away, not giving me much eye contact, and she didn't say goodbye to me. And so I didn't really know what to make of it, and that's how it was ever since. And so, I had these feelings I was holding on to. I didn't know how to grapple with it, I didn't know how to process it, and I just needed somebody to talk to. So I eventually opened up to a coworker who is friendly with this girl, and I just poured out my emotions. And I really shouldn't have done that. I deeply regret it, because I don't know if I could trust her. I don't know if I could keep her at her word. If she has relayed or told all of this to her, that would be incredibly embarrassing if so. But like I said, I needed someone to talk to. As we kept talking about it, I had to kind of pry this out of her, but this coworker had told me what she had told her at one point. And apparently she had said that she was only texting me because she thought I was lonely and didn't have friends. And that, it didn't really set in with me at the time, but that really hurt, hearing that. I opened myself up to what I thought was a friendship, and then she pulled away and would say something like that behind my back, even if, she didn't mean it to be hurtful. And, this coworker was rationalizing it by saying, she was just being a good friend, but, good friends don't say that, And if I had to guess why she said that, it was likely her way of managing her guilt. This probably did not go down well with her boyfriend when he had found out she was texting me. The question then becomes, why would she reach out to me in the first place? If she is in such an exclusive relationship, because she must have known her boyfriend wouldn't have been comfortable with her texting me. So it just doesn't make much sense. Like, maybe she was going through a slump at the time. Maybe she wasn't receiving enough attention from him. Again, it's a long distance relationship, so there's probably lonely nights. Maybe she just wanted a friend. I don't know. I have no idea. But it would have saved me a lot of grief in the end if she had never done this, if she had never started texting me. It's not right. And then for her to say those things about me behind my back, even if she didn't mean it to be hurtful, it still hurts, So, once I heard that, next time I saw her, I avoided her. I didn't say a word to her. And, she definitely suspected something was up because, the way I went about it, it definitely came off as rude, because she would ask me something and I wouldn't say anything back to her. So, and I remember towards the end of her shift, she was kind of hovering around me, expecting me to say something to her. I didn't say anything. So, she probably dislikes me now. Because then I remember the next shift that we had, she was totally avoiding me. Like, she had her back turned towards me the whole time. I remember when I was baking, I would come up to the front and then she would go into the back. So she was like trying to time it so that she wouldn't be near me. And yeah, this was around the time that she got a promotion. You know, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but you know, she was pulled aside by the manager, praised for her work, and was offered extra responsibilities, control of the office, and a pay raise. And this was during the same shift that I was scolded by the manager for certain things that weren't even my fault. So, you know, I can only speculate that she thinks it has something to do with that, why I began avoiding her. And yeah, she probably hates me. She probably dislikes me because of it. Because in my last few weeks of baking, you know, I would be closing and she would be opening in the morning. She does 3 a.m. baking shifts. I used to do 2 to 7 baking shifts. So, you know, I was wrapping things up for the person in the morning. That was her. You know, she would leave these notes in the back, like pasted up on the board, and she usually never does this, basically scolding me on what I did wrong. She wouldn't say my name, but you know, she would say, you know, like the notes would read, you know, please stop doing this, please stop doing that. And I think that was her way of getting back to me, of spiting me. So, you know, I can only assume she does not like me as a person anymore. She hates me, wants nothing to do with me. And I just feel bad. You know, I feel like I should try to make amends with her. And, you know, I'm not expecting us to be friends again. I'm not expecting things to go back to the way things were. But if I could try to clear the air and tell her at least part of the truth. You know, just say to her, like, hey, you know, I'm sorry if I came off as rude to you in the past. You know, I know I was avoiding you. It's not what you thought it was. But, you know, I can't control what her response would be. And it might be old news, right? Because I don't know when I'll ever see her again. It might be weeks and weeks from now. It might not be ever again. And if I don't ever see her again, then, yeah, that's it, right? I mean, that door is closed regardless. But if I can try to at least be on neutral terms with her, then great. And you know, there's another coworker I talked to about this, and I didn't tell her that I had feelings for this girl, but you know, she was also friendly with her at one point. And yeah, this coworker had told me how this girl became avoidant with them at one point, and then suddenly accused this coworker and a few others of not wanting to be her friend, even though there was nothing that would have suggested this to be the case. It was just, you know, really out of the blue. And that's it's a little strange. And I remember when I had her added on Discord. I don't anymore because she removed me. I never messaged her at all. Like, I think I sent her like one message and that was it. And we never like played any games together. I actually, when I asked her for Discord, like, she was hesitant to give it to me. I remember that. This was before we started texting. You know, I'd asked her like, hey, you know, do you have a Discord? And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, do you mind if I add you? And then she said, if you want to, yeah. Which basically means not really, but sure. And I quickly found out why that was, because, you know, she has her boyfriend plastered all over her profile, like in her profile picture, her banner photo. But I remember in her biography, like her About Me section, she had this quote from a song, and it said something like, don't think we're ever gonna break up, because if you leave, I'm gonna blow my brain up. And that was a little concerning, when I read that. And so, yeah, I guess what I'm gathering, and I know she is on the introverted side, like the very nature of her relationship is unusual, right? It's long distance. Like the mere fact that she had reached out to me and started talking to me. I think what I'm gathering is she doesn't have that many solid connections outside of her boyfriend. Like she may have like a few friends in real life that she keeps in touch with from school. She might have a handful of online friends, but most of those friends are mutual friends with her boyfriend. I think her boyfriend is really all she has, Like her boyfriend is her entire world. And she is very much dependent on her boyfriend emotionally and for stability in life. And while that may sound sweet at first, and I've said how, like, in a previous video, like, it would be special to mean that much to somebody. And that deep love is important to any relationship. You should deeply love your partner, but you should also have a sense of purpose and identity outside of that relationship. When your partner completes you, when your partner is your entire world, what if they were to leave? What then? Breakups are tough, right? I imagine they are. I've never been in a relationship, but I've seen it. Breakups can be devastating. But relationships end all the time. Half of marriages statistically end in divorce. If that person were to leave, if that relationship were to end, your world shouldn't come crashing down with it. You should be able to survive. But what do I know, right? Again, I've never been in a relationship. And things might just work out for them. We had stopped texting because of her boyfriend. Her boyfriend didn't want her texting me any longer. Perhaps it's indicative of some broader unhealthy dynamics in that relationship. Perhaps some codependency. But, it might just work out for them. And I wish them the best of luck, Yeah, it's been tough to let go of these feelings, even though what I'm feeling towards her is not tangible. It was never tangible. It was never realistic. It was never a possibility. There was never a chance I could ever be with this person, that I could start dating them. Like, they have always belonged to someone else. They've always been taken for as long as I've known them. Your emotions don't care about logic. Emotions often aren't logical. You can't help the way you feel or end up feeling towards somebody when you connect with them. It just sucks the way things turned out. And I wish this wouldn't keep happening. I opened up to a friendship and they pulled away. I understood it, but then I heard those things being said behind my back, and it really hurt. And it's been tough to let go. And I know it's senseless to remain fixated on this person. This person is not my friend anymore. This person does not care about me. This person likely wants nothing to do with me. But I'm still holding on to something that isn't there, and I don't know why. So anyways, that's really all I have to say, all I have to talk about. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I really appreciate it. If you have any advice, if you can relate to this, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. And yeah, I think I'm almost at the end, and I'm feeling better bit by bit each day. I just have to remind myself, like, it's not my fault for the way things turned out, and life is too short to waste your time ruminating on stuff like this over and over again. It just sucks. It sucks that this keeps happening.